What's up guys, this is FlamingVictini and this time I'm back to bring you PDC versus Century Express for Smogon Tour Playoffs Round 1. And their first game is going to be DPP. So PDC led off with his Jirachi, it seems, as Century Express led off with his Metagross. PDC went for the Body Slam to try to get a paralysis as the Metagross went for the Earthquake. So PDC switched out his Jirachi into his Hippowdon as the Metagross went for Earthquake again. And then as Century Express switched out his Metagross for his Swampert, the Hippowdon went for the Stealth Rocks. And now the Swampert went for his own rocks as PDC brings out his Roserade. So at this point, the Swampert is definitely going to be forced out. This Roserade will probably be able to get a Sleep Powder off on one of Century Express's Mons. And I'm not sure if you want to go back into Metagross to not reveal too much of his team, but PDC actually goes for the Toxic Spikes. So I'm thinking this Roserade will still be... Oh wait, I think Sleep Powder plus Toxic Spikes is illegal if my DPP knowledge is decent enough. So this is not actually Sleep Powder Roserade, but Toxic Spikes could wear down Century Express's team if he has grounded Mons. I don't think there are too many poison types in DPP, especially grounded ones, because Gengar has Levitate, so it's not removing any T-Spikes. So Century Express has grounded Fat Mons that could be troublesome, but Century Express actually pulls a double into his Breloom, expecting the Hippowdon. Very nice, and the Breloom does have Poison Heal. So, but that it would have been activated by Toxic Orb regardless, but at least he gets recovery that turn. And the Breloom goes for the Spore as PDC goes to his Jirachi. And now PDC can bring in his Roserade. Remember, in DPP, the grass types can be put asleep. So the Breloom goes for a superpower, and that actually deals a pretty hefty chunk to Roserade. So if this Roserade has HP 5, I can probably go for that on the Metagross. But it seems as if PDC tries to predict the switch to Metagross so that he can Hydro Pump or Rapid Spin. Or Surf, I guess, since this is looking defensive, but Century Express actually goes for a double superpower, I guess expecting some sort of double. And if this Starmie has Psychic, or I don't think they carry Psychic, but Ice Beam, I'm not sure if it'll be able to kill this Breloom depending on how much bulk it runs, but seeing that it's superpower Breloom, it's probably a more offensive Toxic Orb set. So PDC might want to try to predict a switch and Rapid Spin, but that seems a little risky. So I'm thinking he'll go for an Ice Beam here, although I'm not completely sure if all the Starmies carry Ice Beam. I saw Leftovers, so I'm assuming this is defensive and not a Life Orb set. And you have to remember, in DPP there is no Scald, so it does have Psychic, so defensive, so I guess that works out for PDC. He is able to remove the Breloom, which was looking like a big threat, especially since Roserade could not switch into a normal attack superpower. But Century Express actually reveals the Weavile, so PDC says, ugh, my Bane. Now his Starmie's going to get Pursuit trapped, and he's not going to be able to Rapid Spin away those habits. I'm pretty sure Pursuit will KO regardless of whether or not PDC stays in. But if it does not, I guess it is some sort of 50-50. But I'm thinking that Pursuit will KO at this range, especially if this is... I don't know. I know Somalia likes to run Extra Elt, but not too many people like that. They generally prefer Banded or Life Orb, it seems. I'm thinking this is Life Orb. I'm just going to assume that until we see an item. But if the Starmie gets trapped, looking at the rest of PDC's team, he doesn't have much for this Weavile. Hippowdon, and okay, if it's not Ice Punch Weavile, then Hippowdon might be able to kind of handle this Weavile. But Roserade dies, Jirachi is weakened and asleep, so yep, the Weavile is Life Orb and goes for the Pursuit to take out the Starmie. So it is actually incredibly low now because of the Stealth Rocks, the Life Orb, and the Toxic Spikes. But PDC says, oh, come on now. So I guess it's possible that it would not have killed without the crit. But PDC brings in his Rotom. This is definitely Choice Scarf the way he brought it in. And I'm guessing he's going to go for the Hydro Pump, not the Thunderbolt, because he doesn't want to give that Swampert a free switch, especially seeing how weak that Roserade is. But Century Express actually goes... Oh, he does go for the Thunderbolt. This is pretty bad for PDC. Unless he is last Mon, can switch into the Swampert comfortably, this looks pretty annoying. So PDC actually goes into his Hippowdon on the Ice Beam. Oh yes, I guess Hippowdon can't take this on. Unless this is like Surf or Hydro Pump Swampert, I don't think that's standard. I think Ice Beam, Earthquake, Stealth Rocks, and Protect or something? Yawn? Rest? I'm not sure, but PDC goes for the Slack Off. Yeah, Roar, my bad. That's what it is. As the Swampert goes for the Roar, the Toxic Spikes is slowly chipping away at the Swampert's health, but PDC goes back into his Hippowdon as Century Express goes into his Metagross, so that works out pretty well for PDC. But oh no, the Metagross goes for the Explosion, and Explosion is extremely strong in DPP, so that takes out the Hippowdon clean, and now the Swampert is looking like a huge threat. But if PDC can somehow... The Century Express is definitely not gonna... Sorry about that, guys. I did not think that was gonna happen, but if Century Express goes into his Weavile, he's definitely not going to go into his Weavile, because if PDC doesn't bring in his Roserade, then that won't work out for Century Express, but he wants to remove the Roserade, because this Swampert is looking like a huge threat, especially if Century Express has a really solid water resist in the back, so that Rotom can't Hydro Pump spam. I'm still kind of surprised that the Rotom went for the Thunderbolt on the Weavile. I think the Swampert coming in was kind of problematic, although PDC did show that his Hippowdon could switch in fine, so PDC actually brings in his Jirachi just to see what Century Express would bring in himself, so that he could get the appropriate switch. And he does bring in the Roserade on the Swampert. The thing is here, I'm thinking Century Express will want to save this, just to have the Thunderbolt immunity, although I'm really not too sure on what his last two Mons are, or what PDC's last Mon is. I'm not particularly practiced at figuring out the last Mon of a team. Looking at PDC's team, it might actually be a Pursuit Trapper. It looks, although that might be Spadef Hippo, because it looks a little Gengar weak, etc. But it is Psychic Starmie, so I guess not. I don't know, I'm not sure what Century Express wants to do, but I think PDC is just going to fire off a Giga Drain. I'm not too sure what's going on in his mind, but he probably has a game plan forming, because he knows what his last one is. I like DPP a lot, but I'm not exactly the most practiced. I'm not bad at it. I wouldn't say I'm bad at it, but I'm not good at determining the last Mon, unless it's like really, really obvious. But, Century Express's team, let's see. It seems weak to stuff like Scizor or something. Okay, it's actually a Dragonite. That makes sense, it fits. Some sort of flying type, yeah, for sure. And PDC goes for the Energy Ball, not the Giga Drain. Is Giga Drain really weak in DPP? I remember there was one gen where Giga Drain was weak as hell, but this is looking really bad for PDC. Really, really bad. Because the Dragonite kind of forces the non-water move from Rotom, and then that Swampert can come in, and I don't think PDC's last is an especially good answer to it, although it could be, since he wouldn't want to reveal it early. I'm thinking it's some sort of offensive Mon. But, I'm not sure what PDC could do here. I'm really not sure. And, actually, I'm kind of curious. Who is the higher seed in this game? PDC was a higher seed. I'm kind of curious that PDC chose DPP first, since Century Express, I was looking at the records, and he had an extremely high, he had a pretty good, what's it called, DPP record, although PDC's DPP record is also stellar, 16-5 and 12-3, so I thought, like, 3 losses, that's pretty huge, so, unless he played in less tours, but, I don't know, I'm not the best person to judge DPP, although it's a very enjoyable metagame, and I do like it a lot, and I do have a good amount of knowledge in it, but PDC is thinking, I don't think Sludge Bomb will kill, that Dragonite could also extreme speed the Roserade, so I guess, I don't know if the Rotoms run HP Ice, that could be an option to switch into his Rotom on the extreme speed, as he does, and yes, so Century Express does go for the extreme speed. Now, unless this is HP Ice Rotom, I don't think Thunderbolt will be able to KO it at this range. And there is no Volt Switch in DPP, so it's not like he has that option either. And Century Express might be a little aggressive and go into his Swampert. Although I'm not too sure. I think he'd only want to do that on a Electric move. so that he's not, because he can't really touch the Rotom hard himself besides roaring it out. So he'd rather have it locked into an electric move and only have to take toxic damage. But PDC is definitely trying to play this endgame very carefully. He looks like he's in the lower hand, but okay, so it's a Magnezone in the last, which makes sense to trap the steals like Skarmy. That can seem really troublesome to Century Express's team. And Rotom does go for the HP Ice on the Magnezone switch, and that Magnezone was a good middle ground for Century Express, and this is looking tough for PDC. I think PDC has to be a little more aggressive in the endgame, but PDC goes into his Roserade on the Magnezone's Thunderbolt, and I'm thinking here we'll see PDC's last, and yes, it is a Zapdos. So that's not looking... If this is an Agility HP Grass Zapdos, I think it could sweep, like Roost, Agility, Roost, Thunderbolt, HP Grass. Unless this Magnezone is like Custap, Explosion, Endure. Maybe, ooh, if this is Explosion Magnezone, if PDC can go into his Rotom on the Explosion, and then force the Swampert to be the mon that kills the Rotom, so that way Zapdos can try to set up on it, although I don't think Zapdos can comfortably set up on Swampert, since Swampert can EQ on the Roost, and it can Ice Beam when it's not roosted. And considering that Zapdos will be at 50% when it comes back in, and he has to be healthy enough to take a Weavile Ice Shard, plus a potential G9 speed, I think PDC loses this, unless he can somehow set up on this Magnezone. And this is assuming it's an Agilitos. So PDC goes for the Roost on the Thunderbolt. And seeing that damage, it'll do a clean, like, 50-ish% if PDC does not Roost on the Thunderbolt. So PDC can come out at around, at least, if Century Express Thunderbolts as PDC Agilities, and then PDC Roost as Century Express switches out the Magnezone, PDC would be at 70%, although I don't think that would be enough to handle the E-Speed plus Ice Shard. And then I think Rotom would be able to be finished, but it is Heat Wave, not HP Grass, as Magnezone goes for the Thunderbolt on the Zapdos. And if this is Custap, yep, it is Custap, and it Thunderbolts the Zapdos and takes it out. So this is looking like this is Century Express's game. Unless Rotom can crit the Hydro Pump and the Dragonite, that would be a twist in events. I'm not sure how much Ice Shard does. It is not resisted by Rotom, since it is all Rotom forms are Electric Ghost and DPP, so I'm not too sure how much Ice Shard does to the Rotom. But I was guessing a Hydro Pump crit would be able to take out the Dragonite, but it actually goes for the HP Ice. So, oh wait, how much will HP Ice do to this Weavile? That's the question. Oh, that does too much. That Ice Shard does too much, yeah. The PDC is done, because the Sand will take them out, and Century Express has enough mons left to wear it out. So, yep, PDC loses Game 1 to Century Express. That was I think that was a pretty close game. Although I think if PDC was a little more aggressive with his Rotom early on, that might have served him better. But definitely an enjoyable series. Also, I think Century Express played it really well to explode with his Metagross on the Hippowdon, because without that explosion, I think Hippowdon would have been able to 1v1 Century Express's team once that Breloom went down to Starmie Psychic, so that was definitely a very critical turn. And I think well played to both players. But yeah, this was a good game regardless, and I'll be back for Game 2. Alright guys, we're back for Game 2, and this time it's going to be ORAS OU. Now, PDC actually brought ABR's team that he used in OLT, and Century Express brought a kind of interesting team. It has the Lopunny Amoonguss Tornadus core, Lopunny Amoonguss Tornadus Rotom Wash core, and then it has a Hoopa Bronzong, which is kind of similar to T-Tar Excadrill, except certainly different in its own right, but it actually looks pretty interesting. But okay, I started really quickly, so let me try to catch up. So PDC led off with his T-Tar as Century Express led off with his Bronzong, and the T-Tar switched out to the Lando as the Bronzong went for the Stealth Rocks. PDC went for his own Stealth Rocks as the Bronzong went for the Reflect, and then the PDC went for the knockoff and removed Bronzong's Cobra Berry as Bronzong went for the Gyro Ball and got some damage from Rocky Helmet, so kind of a wasted turn for Century Express in terms of Reflect, and not too bad for PDC. So PDC went for the knockoff again as Century Express switches into his Rotom-Wash, and PDC went into his Amoonguss as the Rotom-Wash went for the Will Switch, which was a nice play on Century Express's part to try to utilize all of his Reflect turns and get the momentum, rather than like going for a Will-O-Wisp and then Volt Switching into his own Amoonguss and wasting turns, etc. But PDC goes into his T-Tar as Century Express went into his Tornadus, and I think Century Express should have realized that this is Choppletar. So PDC actually goes for the Stone Edge and removes the Tornadus as he went for the Superpower. I think if that Tornadus had U-turn, it should have definitely gone for that, not the Superpower. I think that Choppleberry Berry was really obvious. And also ABR has told me about his team, so I asked him about it later and he said it was Choppletar, 4 attacks, mixed tar. So Century Express goes into his Lopunny on the T-Tar. If this is Power Punch Lopunny or Ice, I guess Ice Punch would be more immediately threatening, although PDC does have the Amoonguss. I'm not sure if it's physically defensive or not, but the physically defensive Amoonguss would be able to take on the Lopunny pretty well, I think. Otherwise, he does have the Rocky Helmet Lando, Excadrill to Revenge, and once that Alakazam gets off the Mega Evolution, he can hit Lopunny. But this might also be Quick Attack Lopunny, that has been getting more popular recently. But PDC goes into his Lando T as the Lopunny goes for the High Jump Kick and takes that Rocky Helmet. I feel like High Jump Kick was way too obvious. Like PDC was definitely going to switch and preserve that T-Tar, because especially since he had so many switches for Lopunny. So Century Express had nothing to do to Lando or the Amoonguss, so I think he should have at least doubled. Although the thing about Century Express's team is that the Bronzong, while it fits kind of nice defensively, it's pretty passive, I think. So this Lando, I think, could be pretty troublesome. But the PDC doubles to his Amoonguss as Century Express goes into his own Amoonguss, which is pretty interesting. Alright, sorry guys, Alright. So, I think this is kind of like a stalemate, although it depends on, I guess, which Amoonguss is faster. Because if one Amoonguss is faster than the other, it'll force out the other more quickly. But then it also depends on who can predict better. And, okay, so Century Express goes for the Clear Smog. Not even a Sludge Bomb, so I don't even know if he has Sludge Bomb. It might be Clear Smog, HP Fire. As PDC is going for the HP Fire, which is nice because it also hits the Bronzong, which is the most likely switch. Oh, actually, Hoopa Unbound, yes, as it comes in, is definitely much more threatening. As PDC very nicely goes for the Spore on the switch to Hoopa. That was very nicely played. Very well timed. Wow, that was good. That was definitely very good. So PDC goes into his Lando T as the Hoopa burns its sleep turn. It's one guaranteed sleep turn. And if Century Express doesn't want to risk a 2-turn wake to wake up, as I expect he would not, then PDC gets an easy momentum by going for the U-turn. So I think Century Express is really trying to wear down this Lando T with the Stealth Rocks. This Lando T is very troublesome for Century Express's team, because it can gain a lot of momentum and deal damage to the physical attackers. Like, the most likely, I guess, CB Hoopa seems like it's so splashable on teams like this, but I think that's CB Hoopa, but it could be Life Up Mixed or something. And then the Lopunny. So this Lando T is definitely doing really well for PDC, and I guess this would be an opportunity to go into his Alakazam, and that way he could go for either the safe Psychic, or he could go for the Shadow Ball, trying to predict the Bronzong or the Hoopa. But this Alakazam is looking like a huge threat right now, especially now that Hoopa is asleep. If I know this is Calm Mind Zam too, so if PDC can get off a free Calm Mind somewhere, like on the Rotom or something like that, this could be a really troublesome situation for Sentry. Although if he does burn the Alakazam and then go use his Fake Out Lopunny, that would stop a sweep eventually, but PDC would also get a lot of kills. And also the only thing, I'm not sure if PDC would want to go for the Psychic or the Shadow Ball, but considering such a upper hand PDC has in this situation, I'm not sure if PDC would want to just try to end it or just play it safe. But this is a tricky position for Century Express. He doesn't have many options. I'm trying to think of how he can win the game, and I really don't see much. He has to somehow. I don't see it because his Amoonguss loses to PDC's Amoonguss 1v1, so which forces him to switch earlier. And if PDC can predict that switch properly like he did on the Hoopa, then in the end game that would work out very poorly for Sentry. And so Century Express goes into the Hoopa as PDC goes for the Shadow Ball and gets a crit. Now even without that crit, I think he will need a Focus Blast to kill this Hoopa. And I'm not sure if PDC would want to risk a Focus Blast and then having that miss, and then the Hoopa waking up and killing off this Alakazam, since the Sam is such a huge threat. So yeah, PDC goes into his T-Tar as the Hoopa does wake up and goes for the Hyperspace Fury. So I'm thinking that PDC would want to go into Excadrill here. It seems only natural to utilize this hand, but at the same time, I think that might be also a little bit poor because it gives Century Express the Bronzong and the Rotom-Wash. The Rotom-Wash which can get momentum for the Hoopa to come back in on the Amoonguss and grab one more kill before it eventually goes down, or the Bronzong which just sets up Rock again and gets up Reflect, and is actually pretty troublesome for PDC's team to break, since it's so good defensively against his team. But PDC does go into the Excadrill, sorry about that, and I think he will go for the Rapid Spin right here, or the Rock Slide, as he goes for the Iron Head. And Century Express brings in the Rotom. Oh, this is AV Drill, but so I guess he goes into his Lando T. Ooh, okay. I guess oh, that was nice. Did not consider Pain Split. Pain Split was really obvious, so that was very well done by PDC. Now the question here is whether PDC will U-turn. Oh, the Rotom is faster than the Lando. So I think PDC should have hard switched to his Amoonguss then. I don't think losing his Lando that early was worthwhile. But on the bright side for PDC, this is another opportunity to bring in his Alakazam, and assuming that his Amoonguss is defensive enough, hopefully he will be able to take 2 hits from the Lopunny. The Sand will wear off after PDC brings in Amon and then goes for an attack, so that's not going to be a problem anymore throughout this game. And PDC does bring in the Alakazam. I think Shadow Ball should kill at this range, so that's going to be the play of PDC's choice. If Century Express wants to be really aggressive, he could go into his Lopunny on the Shadow Ball, but I don't think that's... He goes into a Bronzong. PDC goes for the... Oh, I really disagree with that play. Like, if we were going... There was no way PDC was going for Psychic there. He was going to go for, like... If you're... just, like, at least sack the Rotom. I think that's what my mentality would have been. Like, why sack the Bronzong at 60%? Oh, this is Scarf Hoopa? Oh. If this is Scarf Hoopa... If this is Scarf Hoopa, then this is going to be troublesome for PDC now that he's lost his Sand. Oh my god. Can Keldeo even switch in to Scarf Hoopa? I don't remember if that's a leftovers Keldeo or some... I don't remember the Keldeo set. If it's Scarf Keldeo, then this isn't too big of a problem for PDC, because eventually this Hoopa will go down to Stealth Rocks. But if Century Express's Hoopa is at enough HP that it can live another Stealth Rocks, he goes for the Hyperspace Tree. Oh my god, that does 51. That has to be banned. Wait. That has to be banned. Let me calc that. I have to calc that. Let's see. Keldeo or attack versus Hoopa. Hoopa unbanned. Hyperspace Fury. 252. Yeah, that is a clean choice banded Hoopa. What is this? Oh. That is a clean choice banded Hoopa, so very well played bluff. That was a very well played bluff on Century Express's part to go into his Hoopa and bluff the Scarf when it was actually choice banned. So that PDC goes into his Keldeo as the Amoonguss and revenges the Hoopa as Century Express brings in his Amoonguss to revenge the Keldeo as PDC goes for the Scald again and goes into his Alakazam to kill off the Amoonguss, and Century Express brings in his his Amoonguss, Rotomosh for whatever reason, as PDC kills that off with the Psychic 2, and then PDC can just go into his Amoonguss very easily, spore this Giga Drain, and his Alakazam also just wins. So yep, that was well played on PDC's end. I think Century Express had a little screw up by switching into his Bronzong into the Alakazam Shadow Ball. If he went to his Lopunny, I think that might have been a different game. It could have been a different game. But yep, PDC finishes off the Lopunny with the Alakazam, and that's going to be the ORAS game. So this is going to be going to game 3, Black and White. This was a good game, although I think PDC definitely outplayed this game. And so, although Century Express had a very nice bluff with the Hoopa, bluffing the Choice Scarf, that was very nice. But PDC also had some sort of matchup with his Alakazam, and Century Express losing his Torrent early also lost him some momentum, and I think he could have just U-turned. So yep, those are my concluding thoughts, and we'll be back with Game 3. Oh my god, guys, we're back with Game 3, Black and White OU. They started very, very quickly, and it looks like Century Express has brought a team I saw Sugar High use. The Rain Excadrill team, Shuckleberry SD Excadrill, is very threatening to Sand, and I think Century Express was expecting PDC to bring Sand, but it seems like PDC is a little bit smarter than that. He actually has, but the Excadrill would be Sand Rush, so it doesn't have Mold Breaker, so it can't beat the Rotom, and PDC also has the Lando T, which is an okay check, considering that the Excadrill does have the Shuckleberry, but he does have the Rotom. Now I am kind of interested by the fact that PDC has a Jirachi and a Magnezone and a Rotom, like a lot of type overlap. And I don't see a lot of specific role overlap, Magnezone being the key thing that's overlapping, but I guess it is to trap steals. Although you could just as easily just run fire coverage on Lando or something like Garchomp Lando. It seems like an odd team. Garchomp Lando T, very weak to ice. Then you have the Jirachi, Magnezone, Rotom. Seems kind of odd. And then Alakazam thrown in there. Alakazam is always good. But then that makes this team even more dark and ghostly. Well, actually, Jirachi in Black and White still does resist dark and ghost, so not entirely, but PDC leads off with his Rotomosh as Century Express leads off with his Latios, goes with the Draco Meteor, and misses on that Jirachi. That sucks for Century Express, because that would have been crucial knowledge about PDC's set if it had like leftovers or something, and it could have just been solid damage in general. But PDC goes for the rocks as Century Express goes for his own rocks after going into his Jirachi, and PDC goes into his Magnezone to trap this Jirachi. Now I thought this was a U-turn Jirachi because that's based on what I knew from Sugar High's team, but it actually goes for the Body Slam. It might be Body Slam U-turn actually, but no, it goes for the Iron Head, so he gets the paralysis on the Magnezone. Remember that in Gen 5, electric types can get paralyzed. So PDC, I think the reason PDC went for HP, I don't know, I feel like he should have gone for the Thunderbolt, because Excadrill is not that big of a threat considering PDC does have the Rotom. I know last time this happened, PDC did go for the HP Fire to stop the Excadrill from trying to stop the Excadrill from setting up, but Jirachi keeps on going for the Iron Heads, and eventually PDC is able to finish off the Jirachi, ending the scenario with a near 50% Magnezone. I'm guessing locked into HP Fire, although PDC might be playing a bluff, the HP Fire. And Century Express goes into his Politoed, I believe this is Scarf Toad, which fits pretty well onto offensive range teams. And he can kind of just fire off a Hydro Pump here. PDC is forced to bring in his Rotom on that Hydro Pump, I think. He has no real switch-ins for it, and I guess that would help weaken up the Rotom for the Excadrill. If you can weaken up the Rotom a little bit, and then the Excadrill can get some Iron Head flinches or Hydro Pump / Will-O-Wisp misses, it might actually be a pretty big threat, since PDC's main way just to revenge it is with the ground move or with Focus Blast, I guess. So, and since the Excadrill is most likely Shuck Berry, the ground move is not the best way to revenge it. But unless Century Express changed this team, he did definitely change the team. But I remember this Jirachi was Wish U-turn, I think. But PDC is contemplating what to do, I guess deciding whether or not he can afford to switch in his Rotom on the Politoed. As wow. So PDC actually stays in to HP Fire the Politoed, and definitely choice then, I mean, my bad. As Century Express goes for the Hypnosis, predicting the Rotom Wash. Scarf Hypnosis. Oh, it's not Scarf. It's, okay. I was thinking this was Scarf Toad, but I had an odd feeling Hypnosis was going to play. But, PDC very nicely, I guess, stays on predicting Century Express to do something, trying to do something about that Rotom. And so now, PDC has actually gotten a decent amount of damage off on this Politoed. How did he get off that much damage? Oh, because he got a crit. Crits are 2 times, that's why. So yeah. The Politoed is now down to 50%, which will be like 3/8 of its health after Stealth Rocks. But I'm not sure if PDC can revenge this with an offensive Garchomp or Alakazam. I think most Alakazam are Sash in black and white, so I'd be kind of iffy on revenging it with Alakazam. He could always just go into Rotom and try to Volt Switch on this Politoed, but if it's heavily specially defensive, then that might not kill. I guess we could run a Calc, although I'm trying to avoid running a Calc. But yeah, PDC does go into his Rotom Wash on the Politoed. Probably just going to click Volt Switch, because that Excadrill does not threaten him at all. In worst case scenario, if Century Express goes into his Excadrill on the Rotom Wash, PDC can just get off a Rain Boosted Hydro Pump on like a Latios or something like that. But Century Express goes directly into his Latios on the Rotom Wash's Volt Switch. And PDC, I guess, has several options. I feel like, I guess that Draco Meteor Miss might have helped Century Express, and the fact that it did not reveal whether this Latios was Life Orb or Choice Specs, I think. I don't think it's Choice Scarf, although it could be, I guess. I feel like Choice Specs is more likely, or I feel like Choice Specs, but Life Orb could also be hit. So in that sense, the Draco Meteor might have helped Century Express, but having that healthy Jirachi in the late game would be very useful to take on hits regardless. And if that Jirachi's U-turn especially, I think PDC is pretty safe to just go into his Jirachi and U-turn. Although, I guess the Alakazam could, I'm not sure if Alakazam Shadow Ball can kill Strange. And PDC doesn't have any options other than Jirachi or Alakazam, unless that's Scarf Lando. Because I did just realize that Jirachi was PDC's rocker, and I was expecting either the Lando or the Garchomp to be PDC's rocker, which in the case that they're both, I highly doubt what you would run a defensive one of those without Stealth Rocks. So it could be a Scarf Lando T and an SD Garchomp, but he does go into his Lando T up, so he's just going to U-turn, and if it does not kill the Latios, he can just U-turn into his Jirachi. So I'm not too sure what Century Express would do here. I guess he could Surf, get off some damage on that Jirachi, and it also hits the Lando T as usual, but let's see. If Century Express switches, then he's gonna lose a lot of momentum. And hold on guys, I'll be right back. Alright guys, sorry about that, but PDC goes for the U-turn as Century Express brings in his Politoed, and PDC finishes off that Politoed with his Alakazam. This Alakazam is definitely looking threatening, especially with that Stealth Rocks up to weaken, do any chip damage he needs to remove the weaken up the Latios or the Tornadus. And I'm not too sure how much Focus Blast will do to that Excadrill if it is Focus Sash, But assuming he can hit the Focus Blast, this Alakazam could just win the game. I'm not sure if the Keldeo is Scarf or not. I guess it would be. That kind of makes sense. Although it could be like sub-CM or something. Some HP Bug, HP Ghost set. Something along those lines. But, I guess we're just waiting for Century Express here. I don't see too many options for him. I think PDC will take this game. I guess the only way Century Express, I guess what is holding PDC together defensively is his Rotom. I think PDC's team is pretty weak defensively, and the Rotom is holding it together against Century Express's Rain. So I guess if Century Express can overload that Rotom with strong attacks, and then have something fast to sweep through PDC's team, like Scarf Keldeo or something along those lines, or maybe Tailwind Tornadus, although I think that's really unlikely. I think that's more likely. I think they run like Life Orb Taunt or something, or just like Specs. I don't think they bothered to run Rain Dance in Black and White. I've most often seen Specs Tornadus, so I'm not even sure if it can take a Psychic after one Stealth Rock switch, and if it can't, I'm assuming PDC can just switch his Alakazam, bring in his Rotom, and then Volt Switch on the Tornadus, and eventually I guess force it to not take the what's it called? Force it to take another Stealth Rocks. But yeah, although PDC's team is weaker defensively, he can just break through it offensively and sack Mons to get in his own right Mons, and then kind of just win that way. So he does have more sacks than Century Express does, but Century Express does bring in his Tornadus on the Alakazam. Probably just going to fire off a Hurricane, I'm thinking. So, I'm guessing PDC would switch. He would want to keep this Alakazam. Although I guess if it is Sash Alakazam, he might want to just stay in and remove his Tornadus. Keep his sacks available, I guess. Like, I don't think Garchomp is doing much this game. Although it could potentially, yeah. I mean, Jirachi is kind of there to help with taking a Draco Meteor. If you give the Latios a free Draco Meteor, that's going to be pretty bad for PDC, so he wants to have the Jirachi there and not just lose a mom to that situation just because he let the Latios get a free switch. So, I'm really not sure if this is Sash or Life Orb Alakazam. But PDC is definitely taking his time here, and he does go into his Jirachi actually, as Century Express does go for the U-turn and is a Life Orb Tornadus. So, I guess the U-turn does make some sense. Oh, it's Balloon Drill. I thought it would be Shucka. The thing about Balloon is that it can get popped, so it's not as consistent throughout the game, and it's also not as surprising. But I guess this team has been seen, or something like this team has been seen so much that people would assume like Shucka SD, something along those lines. I kind of doubt that Landos would run Superpower in Black and White, although I'm not too sure how much the meta has changed after the introduction of Excadrill. But I guess PDC has the option of going into his Rotom, although I'm not too sure how keen he is, since he might be fearing the Rotom getting weakened and losing to a Keldeo, I'm guessing. So he wouldn't want to go into his Rotom, get Rock Slide flinched or something along those lines. So he might just choose to go into his Garchomp or his Lando T and like break the balloon or something along those sorts. And PDC is taking his time here to decide what to do. I'm guessing he's doing his best to find out the safest, most guaranteed way to win this game. But I do think he is in the upper hand right now, as long as he does not give Century Express any free kills. Or if he does give him a free kill, he gets one back of his own, basically. So that way he can win the exchange war. And those Stealth Rocks are definitely important. I think the only obstacles to Alakazam winning at this point is a potential Scarf Keldeo and the Focus Blast missing. But it is a Rapid Spin Excadrill. I wasn't sure if it would be Rapid Spin or SD Rock Slide. I guess it could also be SD Rapid Spin, but I wasn't expecting Rapid Spin regardless, although it is nice now in this situation, because his Latios is now at 75% health, and I think that means that he can take a Shadow Ball. And if that means it can take a Shadow Ball, then that means it can force switches on the Alakazam. Assuming the Alakazam is not Sash, or PDC wants to save that Sash for later on. I think Sash Alakazam is definitely very good in this situation for PDC just to take that extra hit. But Century Express goes into his Keldeo as PDC goes for the U-turn and brings in his Alakazam. So I'm not too sure if this would be Scarf Keldeo or not, but I'm guessing PDC is just going to utilize his Sash to remove the Keldeo, or has analyzed that this Keldeo is not Scarf, with his most likely superior black and white knowledge than mine. So PDC has not immediately gone for anything yet here, and if he chooses to switch out his Keldeo, or if he is forced to switch out his Keldeo, he does not have many options. I would think that if he's forced to switch out, he would be forced to bring in his X-Drill and try to force a Focus Blast miss, or to just sack him on. But, or just, if this is Scarf Keldeo, to break this Alakazam Sash with a Water move. And then I guess not be troubled by a Sash Alakazam later on, so that way his Latios is more immediately threatening. So, I think this team does need Scarf Keldeo just for that speed. Because, especially since it's not Scarf Politoed, although Scarf Politoed is not exactly the fastest mon, it is still faster than like Latios and stuff, so, and I don't think the speed Century Express has on his team would warrant him not using a Scarf Keldeo, so I think this definitely is Scarf Keldeo. But yeah, I'm gonna pause it until they make a move, be right back. Alright, so PDC goes for the Psychic as Century Express switches out his Excadrill, switches out his Keldeo into the Excadrill, and I want to calc that Alakazam damage. Alakazam, oh, we should probably make this black and white. Alakazam, OU Special Attacker versus Excadrill. Okay, and this is Psychic. And looking at that Psychic damage, the Psychic did 30% to the Excadrill, so that's not a Life Orb Zam. Unless that's a bulky Excadrill. And PDC is trying to bluff Life Orb Zam in black and white, because most people use Focus Sash. I don't think I've seen Life Orb Zam being used in black and white in a very long time. Because Focus Sash is just so good in the black and white meta. But especially if PDC misses the Focus Blast, then that would be trouble for Century Express. Now what Century Express could try to do is he could try to predict PDC to play it safe. Rather than like trying to go for a Focus Blast miss, if he predicts, did he do it? He did it, oh my god, he did it. So basically the idea is that you predict PDC to try to play it safe and switch out, so that basically expect PDC to switch out and not risk his Alakazam Sash being broken by a Focus Blast miss, and make an aggressive double based on that. So he does go into his Latios, as that does a clean 50%, so that's going to definitely 2 a KO this Jirachi, and that is definitely a Specs Latios, so Century Express does get that kill. But what this does do is allows PDC go into his Lando T and go for the U-turn, I'm thinking. Although I'm not sure if U-turn could kill. But this is, even though this is -4 Latios, I think Specs, it'll still do a decent amount. I think it would break Alakazam's Focus Sash, do a decent amount to the Rotomosh, and kind of, I think, possibly kill the Garchomp, since it is super effective, but I don't think U-turn will be able to kill this Latios. I think keeping this Latios at 75% health is very important for Century Express, and then weakening that Rotom for his Scarf Keldeo. So PDC goes for the U-turn as Century Express brings in his Excadrill. Now PDC could go into his Alakazam and try to kill this with a Focus Blast, but I feel like that's just backtracking himself. Otherwise he might as well have just stayed in the very beginning. But he could also just go into his Garchomp. But then what that does is I feel like it's a little more iffy, because I don't think a fire move will kill Excadrill in the rain. And if PDC goes for the ground move as Century Express switches into his Latios or his Tornadus, that would be really horrible. Now if this is like Life Orb Outrage, I think that would be able to kill Excadrill at this range. might be able to, or at least to a KO it. I guess that would be the safest option, even if it's not life orb. Just go for the outrage, and the extra drill would not be able to OHKO this garchomp. So yeah, PDC, I can't see PDC going for his ground move right here, because that risks so much. If Century Express switches into his Latios, that's just going to be so bad for PDC. I think he's definitely going to go for the outrage. Alright, so PDC, dual chop, so he does not go for the, oh my god. Oh my freaking god. Oh my goodness. So PDC goes for the dual chop. I'm guessing, oh my god. PDC goes for the dual chop and gets a double crit on the Keldeo. Holy smokes. That is so huge. That takes away any chance Century Express had. Because without those double crits, he should have been able to take 2 dual chops and basically get off a rain boosted hydro pump against these. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my Jesus Christ. Is this Endure Select Chomp? This has to be Endure Select Chomp. Oh my god. Oh my freaking god. That's insane. Now, I can't imagine PDC using Custap Berry. I think that has to be Select. If you went for the Swords Dance on the Extra Drill, and then Endure, but the Keldeo is Scarf, so holy smokes. I think Select Chomp just wins. I'm not too sure how much Dual Chop will do to Tornadus at this range, but combined with the fact that PDC has a Scarf Lando and an Alakazam, as well as Rotomosh in the game, Rotomosh in the back, basically all his mons do well at this point. And Century Express lost his Keldeo. And if this Chomp is not even going to go down to the Latios and it gets an extra kill, there's no way Century Express can win. Oh my, I still can't believe it. Oh my god. He went for the Endure. This insane. It definitely has to be Select Berry, or I guess Custap, but I don't see that. I see SD, Endure, Select. Oh my goodness. That actually works out much better than a sub-Select Chomp would. PDC goes for the Endure as Century Express drops that Draco Meteor, and there's the Select Berry. Oh my freaking god. This is amazing. So PDC goes for the dual chop on the Extra Drill, and that will be a 2 KO. Oh my goodness. Oh my freaking god. So PDC goes for the safe Earthquake on the Extra Drill, safe being that he knows that Century Express would not switch with his Extra Drill, and he didn't want to risk a miss dual chop. As that is, oh my god, that is what's it called? Tailwind Tornadus. So, but the thing is, pretty sure PDC's Alakazam is Sash, and regardless of that, because PDC did not kill off the Tornadus, with his Garchomp, that means that he wasted an extra Tailwind turn. So now there are only 2 turns of Tailwind left, rather than 3 turns when this Latios would be in. If there were 3 turns of Tailwind left, then that Latios, if that Alakazam was not Focus Sash, then Century Express might have been able to pull a comeback, because with 3 turns of Tailwind, if he was able to OHKO every single Mon left on PDC's team, I guess provided some crits or something along those lines, then this would be over. But Century Express goes for the Draco Meteor, and the Alakazam goes for the Shadow Ball on the Latios. Tailwind wears out this turn, and PDC can finish off the Latios with a second Shadow Ball from the Alakazam. So that was an insane game, really exciting, and PDC will move on to the top 8 of Smogon Tour 20. So that was really exciting. That Endure Select Garchomp was really exciting. That was definitely amazing, and that double crit on the Keldeo was hilarious. Although that definitely sucked for Century Express, but he played this series very well too, and I think both players really deserve this amazing series. I love that Garchomp, my goodness. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see you guys later.